Hello, hello. I'm Kellyfrancesm. I'm the admin of Eerok from Facebook, where expat entertainers are okay. If you're from my group, I hope you submitted your question or your interest to our poll, and if you didn't, there's still time. If you're not from my group, you're seriously missing out. Don't go anywhere because you can learn something very cool about the people that work in entertainment in Seoul, South Korea. Let's do it! So I'm thinking that not many of us associate being naked in a public place with being totally at ease and feeling safe and protected, but today's conversation really opened my eyes, and that brings me to my talk with the magnificent Nell Fox. She's part of the burlesque community here in Seoul, and I really hope that the shyer members of the entertainment community, women and men, have a chance to check it out because it'll give you a lot to think about. It's a good one. Hope you enjoy it.
All right, so we're here with Nell Fox, and I think it would be great to hear a little bit about you and your life and your history with burlesque, Ms. Fox.
Alrighty. Well, I came to Korea forever and ever ago. It was about, I think, 12 years ago at this point. I think it'll be 13 in August. I never had performed or done anything like that while I lived in the US. I came over here to teach English.
Like burlesque.
Yeah, burlesque, modeling, singing, like for
Were you shy?
Yes. A year later, when my husband ended up deciding to come to Korea himself for a year, and a friend of mine introduced me to this group of army wives that were running a burlesque troupe. They did most of it on base, and then occasionally, every now and then, they do like a show in Itaewon because they had connections with an owner of, I think it was called Roofers, I think is where.
Yeah, Roofers.
Yeah, and so they would sometimes have a show there. There wasn't really a set schedule or anything, and so I decided I'd try joining and do like the singing because they were using an iPod for their music, and I was like, oh, I think it'd be really cool. What if I like sang live? You could put me behind a folding screen or something with like a light to give a silhouette, and then the focus is more on the performer, but it still gives you that live music aspect. But then I got more and more interested in the burlesque aspect of it. And then
had you heard of burlesque before? Did you know much about it at that point?
No, I knew Dina Von Teese, but I didn't really know anything other than that. I knew it was old Hollywood glam, and I knew that it was strip tease but not stripping, but I didn't really know how to define it or other than that. That's basically all I knew. Burlesque is the art of tease. For me, myself, I personally define burlesque as being a sexual subject instead of a sexual object. And
that's interesting.
Telling a story with your body.
Okay, so a story that has a sexual basis.
Yeah, it's embracing your sensuality.
Okay.
And of course, everyone's definition of burlesque is going to be different.
Right.
But that's how I view it. And that's how I try to have my team run with the definition as well.
And what is the name of your team, just so everyone knows?
White Lies Burlesque Revue.
Okay, and we'll make sure that we post, this time I will remember, we post a link to your page.
Okay. And,
so it really is a type of theater.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different aspects to it. It's hard to really pin it down, which is probably part of what makes it hard for people to define it.
Is it just women?
No, absolutely not. It's more commonly known to be done by women, but it absolutely can be done by she's, he's, theys, and thems.
In Seoul, do you have a lot of men that participate in it?
Sadly, not enough, but we have
a decent
number of them.
Are they good?
And yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I get is like, oh yeah, but I'm not gay. Can I still do burlesque?
Like, what skills were done here? Was this singing, dancing, acting?
It depends on each performer. For Saffron, for instance, they do drag and lip syncing, and just general, not dance per se, but just having that stage presence and moving around. It's very acting based.
But dance is a big part of performance for some people.
Yes, for some.
I believe.
Not for me, for instance. I cannot dance.
You sing.
I sing and I light myself on fire.
Okay. Well,
yes.
Do you seriously? What part of you?
My arms mostly. But we also have a significant number of members on the team who can't do any of those things.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what skill set is there a requisite skill set to do burlesque?
No, absolutely not. I suppose if there's anything, it's just the willingness to get on stage and to, if you have stage fright, to conquer it or at least fight it when you go out there. That's pretty much the only thing you have to be willing to do. In a lot of ways, you don't even really need to strip to have it still be a burlesque act. We had a member on the team who was a little bit more traditional, and she said, only my husband is allowed to see my lingerie. So she would strip out of a gown into a silk slip underneath it that was down to the knees. And she would just basically go only that far. She'd take off her dress, her gloves, and her pearls. But the audience was screaming for more by the end of it. She still had them teased. She still had that. She definitely had the sensuality down. So you can even be more modest if that is how you comfortably would feel.
To say that the mark of success would be the teasing aspect, the ability to tease. Is that really what it's all about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So is it like a suspense kind of dynamic interacting with the audience?
It's like, oh, what is she going to do next? What is he going to take off next? What's ooh, they took off their gloves. What's coming after that? It's like
creating.
Are they going to show more? Are they going to show less?
So it's fun then, yes. I guess. Okay.
Maybe
very little.
I've
looking fabulous.
Champagne glass once, and that was like
just once. Well, that's one more than most of us.
I know. I wish it could be every day.
They look very elaborate and very expensive.
Mm.
Is it something when people get involved, they tend to, there's pressure to spend a lot of money or an expectation to keep up?
As an individual, yes, definitely. That is a frustrating part. Like, you can only wear the same costume so many times before people start to get bored with it. But luckily, after all these years, I've been able to learn how to make cheap props and cheap odds and bobs.
What you have behind you does not look cheap. It looks fabulous and it looks expensive.
These are some of the more expensive pieces that I have.
Oh,
it was a little pricier. I had it custom made here in Korea. And then the shoulder pieces I made with a friend.
You're really like an art director, a performer. Well, you actually a lot of things. You're doing your own PR, controlling your own branding, your own image. Do you do your own makeup?
Yes, that's probably where I suck the most, to be quite honest.
Oh, come on.
Because
based on what I see.
Well, there's a difference between day-to-day makeup and then stage makeup. And let me tell you, stage makeup, whew, it's tough.
Just before I forget, when we were talking about theater, we talked a lot about training. Do you guys help each other learn about how to do these things in burlesque? Like, is there training?
That's what my team offers, at least.
Okay. In a course form?
We don't really do courses, especially now with COVID. But typically what we'll do, like, also, as you said, our costume's expensive. Is there pressure for that? One of the things that we do is with the team is, like, I have a whole closet full of corsets and of all sizes and tutus and bustles and
nice.
Small feather fans or small feather clips that you can wear. So we try and tell anyone who joins, like, just come to us with black lingerie and a willingness to rhinestone down the road. especially with burlesque, there's so many different body types. And
yes, I wanted to ask that.
is-
Yeah, people probably wonder, like, do I need to like be thin? Do I need to be perfect? What if I have cellulite?
Nope. That's the nice thing about burlesque is it embraces the curvier body types that would otherwise maybe be less well received in other genres or in other performance platforms. We really encourage, like, there are so many times that performers or people rather will come to me and they'll say, oh, I'd love to do this, but I think I need to lose 10 pounds first. And I always say, if you want to lose 10 pounds for you, that's fine. But don't say that you don't have to lose 10 pounds to do burlesque at all in any way, shape, or form. Like, any body is a burlesque body. There's really no burlesque in Korea. So you don't get to see that here as often as you do in, say, like the US or in Europe.
And in Korea, your audience is generally made up of expats?
Mostly. We're working towards having more Koreans in the audience. Well, we were until COVID. And we got to the point where sometimes it was like 40-60 and 40% Koreans.
Would you generally get a decent turnout, like a committed turnout to events?
Yeah, we were doing pretty well with our shows. We were doing shows twice a month in Itaewon and getting no less than 60 in the door every time.
That's great. And often, I mean, the people, do they understand the appeal, like the tease aspect, or do they tend to come with expectations that are wrong or maybe opposites to what you're trying to do?
We tend to get a few kinds of people who come in. We get the ones who know us from the community and support us, so they know what they're getting into and they're happy to come. We get dudes who just want to see stripping and titties. And then we get people who don't have any idea what burlesque is at all.
They're just curious.
And typically those ones, not always, but mostly are the Koreans. So we, at the beginning of every show, we tend to we have a couple of little trailers, teaser trailers. And so we'll run those on the projector so they can see a little bit of what's going on the screen and kind of get a bit of a vibe and feel for that. And then before each show, we also talk about the rules. The rules are no filming or pictures without the performer's permission. So try and find them during a break. They might want to take photos with you. They might not, but please do not take photos of them when they are in performance. We have one photographer that we assign that duty to. And then we also ask them to cheer because there's nothing more awkward than stripping to a silent audience.
Well, sure. Yeah. Like I was going to ask if someone does join, and you've mentioned the word conquering a lot, conquering your fears. It seems like that's a very big part of getting involved, is conquering insecurity. Do they have to worry about being heckled? Do they have to worry about shitty comments?
Thankfully, they don't. So far, we've been really lucky to have so many supportive people in our audience. And also, I think that helps to build up a certain atmosphere that stops people who might otherwise say something snarky or heckle. And if there is somebody who is heckling or is a problem, they are easily and quickly removed from the situation.
From the sounds of it, they're probably not well received by those around them.
That's the thing, is like the people around them will put them in their place.
Get the hell out. Yeah. Does it ever become completely nude?
No, not intentionally. We've had a couple of pasty slips from time to time, but usually
is that a rule? Like, is that like a faux pas? So so then in that way, it's very different.
There are troops that do full nude, like a Crazy Horse, for instance. But
not a Korean troupe?
No. They are probably the largest burlesque troupe in the world. And for legal reasons, we make sure to keep the coverings in place.
Well, maybe that, I kind of get the impression that might be part of the teasing aspect. You know,
Absolutely.
You're holding something back.
That's where it's based on. When Crazy Horse does the full nude, they in lieu of pasties or panties, what they use are really, really high tech, fancy lights. So they'll hide their bits with the shadows of these projected lights. There's they all have a very uniform. So what we usually do with that, that's how most people end up joining, is they come to a show and they're like, I have no experience, but I want to do something with this.
What do you think their motivation is? Like, do you think people come seeking confidence, feelings? Like, what do you think is?
That's what a lot of them tell me. They're like, wow, you just look so confident up on the stage there. The performers look like they're so happy. And like, I would really like to have a little more body positivity for myself. And like, it looks so glamorous.
That it does.
So, yeah. But then they usually throw out I have no experience, or I'm really shy. I don't know how to start. And so I made this like 30 slide Google slide thing. And it's got like our charter in it with all the rules. It has resources for costumes and recommendations of performers to follow on Instagram for inspiration, regardless of body type or gender and stuff like that.
Who would they get in touch with? Would like your message your group? Do you have do you give a casting call, or can people?
No, they just message us directly. And we also make sure to say at the beginning and the end of every show, if you are interested, we are always open to new performers and new members. Just please reach out to us. Our Instagram, our Facebook, our websites, my personal contact. We just tell people to reach out however they can at every show. So when they first join, we often will have them do something. If they don't have any experience and they're a little nervous, but they do want to get involved, we have them start out as a stage kiddie. That's somebody who helps us and like sets the stage between each performance, like maybe brings out a chair or an ottoman, or cleans up the bras and the stockings and the gloves. And then we also have a couple of group performances. We usually finish with a big group number, and we'll have that person start out with a group number with us, so that they aren't alone on stage, and that you will, if they want, we'll put them a little more towards the back if that's what makes them feel more comfortable, but then they're still involved. And then from there, we ask that they try to come up with an act. I have a few that I'll loan out. I say it like I own them, but the common, like, pop a balloon act. You just cover yourself in balloons full of confetti, and then you pop them.
Just cover yourself in balloons. No big deal.
Yeah, pretty much.
To me, it sounds
just cover yourself in balloons. This giant thing waddling through the door like you do, and be sexy when you do it.
So you guys must rehearse a lot.
Just once a week, or if a performer, we also encourage that performers rehearse on their own time as well, because we do this as a group of hobbyists. But
how big is your group?
Right now, I want to say we have around 12 or 14 members.
Okay.
We've had much more at sometimes, and much less.
It's not a matter of trying out. You are generally accepting of however.
Oh yeah, no, anyone you want to be in it, cool. You're in the group now. Like,
awesome.
We'll find something that works for you.
Well, that I mean, you can't get much more accepting than that in the performance world. Honestly, It's ironic, because what looks the scariest is actually apparently the most accepting. With theater, there are auditions. You actually need to beat people out, but it seems like you pretty much can't fail in a sense.
You really can't. I've had people, like, even in New Orleans, there's burlesque, like, raining from the sky left and right. And then my friends were like, yeah, man, getting the chance to perform out here is like impossible. I wish that White Lies was more common and spread around in other places.
You make it such a safe place, and yet people consider it. When you see a woman naked dangling from that looks terrifying as hell to a lot of us shy wallflower types, and yet what you're describing is so much more supportive and frankly safer, because I consider one to be incredibly frightening, and yet it's fail-proof. It really is. That's such a cool thing to think about. I love that. I thank you for doing the work that you do. Thank you for creating that environment, because I feel like, I imagine you've had quite a few people, it sounds like it, whom you've helped to conquer fears and insecurities, as you put it. And that's, I'm sure, life-changing.
Well, because we're a hobbyist group, it's all right. We're just, the venue lets us use their space, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Just performing for fun. but we try to keep our performers as safe as possible. One of the things that I send out in that packet is a list that I ask you to fill out, personal information so I can contact you, a thumbnail so we can always have a little headshot to associate you by for the photographer, so he knows who he can take pictures of or who he can't take pictures of. And then like you fill out I'm comfortable being on the Instagram account. I'm comfortable being posted as long as I am wearing my costume and not pasties.
Oh, wow. So you
etc.
really,
So that we try to keep every performer as safe as possible. You know, we want people to feel safe. We want people to feel seen and heard and respected. But we also want them to be able to enjoy themselves. So if they want to be able to get some pictures from a show for themselves, so they can start to work on their body confidence and feel good about what they're doing, that's fine. If they don't want us to post it publicly, that's also totally fine. Like, that's really important, for sure, because people need to be able to feel safe.
Yeah, I'm incredibly impressed. And one thing that I'd like to make sure people have is, they know, they see your face, they know your name, a link to where to go if you want to learn more, even if you just, as you said, want to be a stage kitty and kind of just be exposed to the world without feeling pressured to do anything. Just kind of check it out and check out the scene. I'll repeat what I said in the theater segment. I would like to personally make an effort in my group to reach out to all performance communities, such as burlesque, and invite them. You know, if there's a post, if there's an event, please advertise in my group. It seems like there isn't a specific place. Everyone's got their own pages, but I'd love to help provide exposure for something so positive, something so great. Thank you so much. This has been fun. I love your footage. I love your makeup. I love your outfits. I really enjoyed this. This was a blast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.